Hello and welcome to Exoconscious Humans YouTube. Today we have an exciting guest and a good friend and a member of our Exoconscious Coaching group. Has just brought such vast psychic intelligence as well as psychic abilities, and also a wonderful heart and willingness to share and be open with our exoconscious community. So Kevin's been with Exoconscious Coaching for almost 2 years now. We formed a very strong group, and Kevin has always added to it every week when he attends. So we're just so glad to have Kevin Briggs here. So if you enjoy the show, please subscribe to our channel, hit the like button. Also follow us on a newsletter. Our Exoconscious Humans newsletter comes out about weekly or every other week. But we have some exciting programs coming up after the first of the year, and we'd love to include you in it, as well as the coaching members are going to be very active on the YouTube channel also. So this is exciting time for us of really, it's been rapid growth, I think, and Kevin Briggs and his work has added to that. Kevin was also the author of Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey. So that's available on Amazon, and we'll put that up for you to see. You and I have had some history with the reveal. I mean, I remember early messages that you received, and tell us, what is the reveal? And
okay, well, the reveal itself is where our ET Star Family's ambassadors, this group, this Council of Eight, reveal themselves globally to humanity, and we need to be educated in understanding consciousness itself, which we are doing. We're teaching ourselves. And then we have to reach out as the citizens of Earth and invite them to reveal themselves here. And they're prepared to do that once we get sufficient people to invite them. So that's my mission here, is to help facilitate the reveal globally of their presence. And I know when they asked me to do this, I said, well, how can I do that? What should I do? And I questioned about talking out about my experiences. And they said, Kevin, and I said, people won't believe me when I speak out about it. And they all said, Kevin, it doesn't matter whether people believe you or not. What's important is that you tell your story. And I understand that now, because as I tell the story, other people come forward with their own story of consciousness, of their own contact. And we are growing as a family, like the Exoconscious community is growing now, because we are speaking out, we are sharing the knowledge, sharing the information that we are being given directly. And we can ask for information, and they will give it directly to us. I know very often I'm given downloads of information. On one occasion, I was sat by my pool, just relaxing, and I was given the downloaded information about the quantum unified field theory, which I knew nothing about, but explaining how scientists' understanding of it with the non-locality, duality, and entanglement was correct. However, they needed to include consciousness within that, because the non-locality, duality, and entanglement is that of consciousness itself at the quantum subatomic level. Well, they gave me that information. I didn't know anything about it. So I said, look, you've just given me all this information in an instant. And can you show me a craft so I know that the information has come from you? And a craft appeared immediately outside our pool cage. We have a pool here in Florida. I went inside to get my wife and said, Sandy, come outside quick, there's a craft. We went outside, it was still there. We went outside the pool cage. The second one appeared, and then a third, 4, 5, 7 craft in total. They flew silently and slowly over our heads, changed direction by about 80 degrees, and then disappeared sequentially as they had arrived. So that was good confirmation for me. And then not long after that, I was given another download about the theory of everything. And again, I didn't know anything about it. They were saying that, again, our scientists' understanding of the weak force, the strong force, the electromagnetic force, and the gravitational force are correct. However, if they include consciousness as the fifth force, then they will have a better understanding of their own theory of everything, which is what they said about the unified field theory. If they include consciousness itself, then it will expand their own knowledge in relation to their theory. So, and again, on that occasion, I said, look, you just give me, I'm not a scientist, you just give me all this information in an instant. Can you show me a craft to show me that the information has come from you? And a craft appeared immediately and flashed 1, 2, 3 times. So that's the level of contact that I have. I can communicate with them at all the levels of consciousness that they use and all the modalities of contact that they use. But they've done that on purpose. And if we've got time, I can talk about a message I was given. You mentioned messages earlier. I was given for Dr. Stephen Greer. It's quite interesting in respect that I'm asked to give messages from time to time for different people. And I asked after this occasion why he'd given me such a difficult task. And he said, we wanted to see if you would convey messages from us. So I can refer to that particular message. I was traveling out of body, just on my own for pleasure on the astral plane. And as I'm traveling along there, a craft came alongside me. And the craft itself was conscious. And it was a craft that had been created by D through thought and consciousness. They invited me on board the craft and said, after her pleasantries, said that they'd like me to convey a message from them to Dr. Stephen Greer. And I said, yes, I would convey the message. They gave me the message. I left the craft. And then I thought, oh, well, Dr. Greer will want to know who it's from. And I didn't ask them because he won't know who D are. So I went back on the craft. I said, who shall I say the message is from? And I said, tell him it's from the light beings. I hadn't heard that term before. So I said, you're right, I'll do that. So I left the craft. As I went through the skin, I could feel the conscious energy within the craft. And then I came back to my physical body. I woke up and I wrote the message down because it was the middle of the night. And I put the message at the side of the bed. I went back to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I looked at the message. It was for Dr. Greer, and it was asking him to change his itinerary on a specific date because he would be in danger or possibly die on that day. So I looked at it and I thought, I'm not doing that. I screwed it up and threw it in the trash can. And I thought, well, if I contact him, he'll think I'm a lunatic at best. So I'm not doing that. So I told him I wasn't doing it. And the following night, D came into contact with me through a dream. And they explained why I should convey that message and the importance of it. So then I'm left in a dilemma. When I wake up, I think, well, if I contact this Dr. Stephen Greer, who I don't know, I know of him, I've never met him, I don't know him personally, and say I was traveling out of body when two beings in a conscious craft, as traveling as pure conscious energy, gave me a message for you, he'll think I'm absolutely a lunatic or bonkers. But if I don't convey the message and something happened to him on that day, then I would never forgive myself. So I thought, well, I will convey the message. And if he thinks I'm a lunatic, I've been called worse in my life, I can deal with that. So I decided to do it. And then, I thought, well, how do I contact him? So I went onto YouTube, I Googled him, and the first video that came up, he was doing a press conference in Washington, D.C. And sat next to him was a police officer from the UK called Gary Heseltine. I didn't know Gary at the time. I knew of him, but I didn't know him. I knew that he worked in Leeds, you know, so a local policeman, I think he was a detective. So I contacted him by email, and then I phoned him, and I thought I'd better give him the message verbally. So I gave him the message for Dr. Greer. He conveyed it, and about 20 minutes later, Dr. Greer returned an email with a photograph of a light being he had taken in the while he was out in the field. So it was a weight off my shoulder, a responsibility I didn't want. I didn't want to convey the message. And as I said earlier, I asked her, why did they give me such a difficult message to convey? And he said we wanted to see if you would convey messages from us. And now I do. I'm happy doing it. So I'm comfortable with it. But it was, again, another learning curve for me in relation to my contact and communication with the Council of Eight.
I know that you came to me at a time in my life when I was, the first time we met, having a lot of turmoil and thought about what I should do and where I should go and what was my next step. And do you want to, that was such a wonderful message.
Yes, again, that's a fascinating communication using consciousness itself with a very good friend of yours that I can explain what happened. I live in the country. I've got 5 acres and I've got 2 German Shepherds, which we mentioned. And I love taking them outside. I love being in nature. And I was walking past my front gate and a rainbow appeared 180 degrees in front of my gate, in front of my property. And when that happened, Edgar Mitchell gave me a message. And I was aware who Edgar Mitchell was. I was aware that he'd passed some few months prior to that. And he gave me the message and he said he wanted me to give a message to Dr. Rebecca Hardcastle Wright. And I hadn't heard of you then, Rebecca. I didn't know who you were. And I said, yes, I would convey the message. So then I thought, well, how am I going to convey the message? I'll ask my friend, Dr. Melanie Barton. She'll be able to help me. So I contacted Melanie and I said, Melanie, I've got this message for Dr. Rebecca Hardcastle Wright from Edgar Mitchell. And I don't know who she is. And she said, Kevin, Kathleen Marden knows Rebecca Hardcastle Wright. I'll get her to send an introductory email. So Kathleen did that. And then I contacted you. I conveyed the message. And then we became friends because of that message. But it's because of the ability and understanding consciousness itself and having confidence in these telepathic communications that we receive. And I understand that Edgar is still reaching out to other people now. He's still continuing his work from those higher levels of consciousness. So it's all really part of our own education. And we're being guided, we're being brought together as groups like the Exoconscious community, like other groups that are coming together to share this information. So these are very exciting times, I think, for our species, for humanity, and we as the Exoconscious community are at the center of that. And how many groups have direct contact with a group of higher conscious beings, extraterrestrials, as the Exoconscious community has?
And that message came at a time when I had gone to work with Edgar and had moved to Washington, D.C. to be representative for Contract and to work with Edgar in DC. And I was asked at that time to let go of exoconsciousness. I just recently written a book, Exoconsciousness, Your 21st Century Mind. And the direction was, you have to let that work go and not do it anymore to come to work with us. And so I knew Edgar and I thought, okay, this is a great opportunity. I'll do that. And then we had the situation with John Podesta and the meeting at the White House that came out in WikiLeaks. And at that time, then Edgar passed away shortly after that, about a year or so after that. And I was sitting in Washington, D.C. thinking, where do I go next? Do I move forward with 0 point energy or work with consciousness and the extraterrestrial presence? Do I go again into exoconsciousness? And your message was leave Washington, D.C.
Yes, I remember the message as it was yesterday. But yeah, it's fascinating.
It was very blunt.
But how did you feel, Rebecca, when a total stranger gives you information from, you didn't know me, from Adam, and how did you feel when a total stranger reached out to you through Edgar Mitchell?
Well, for me, it became a confirmation because, moving's, you have to decide where you're going to move. leave Washington, D.C. to where and what's your work going to be? And I was thinking of writing a book at the time. So when the message came that it was time to move and I was to leave and it would not be a good place for me in the future, that I had other work to do, part of me pushed back on that and didn't want to hear it. Packing boxes, part of me. Finding a place to live, part of me, and it worked out beautiful. So um, it was an affirmation, but it was also just knowing that, feeling like you and I were working on the same level at that point, that we were both bringing messages to people. I had just, a few years before gone through the Podesta White House and the messages fell apart. Nothing happened as a result of it, except into WikiLeaks then 2 years later. So I knew that you were delivering messages, I was delivering messages, and sometimes they work out on a different timeline, but we're there to seed it. So I think you also had very interesting seeding of information into the UN and to different groups like that, where you had to just take that step forward into the unknown and deliver the message.
Yes, that's correct. A few years ago, I was woken up at 1:11 a.m. in the morning, which again, that's synchronicity. And they gave me information about me wanting to contact the UN in relation to the reveal. Really reaching out with an invitation from them to our governments. And I contacted I think Nicholas Hedman, the chairman of the Outer Space Affairs Committee, and gave him the information. And they did respond initially, and I asked him if they had a protocol to receive the extraterrestrials should they wish to reach out and meet with the United Nations. And they wrote back and said, we don't have a protocol in place at this time. And that's why I said, well, how would we implement a protocol and to receive the extraterrestrials? And they actually used in their wordage, we don't have a protocol to receive the advanced extraterrestrials. So clearly they were acknowledging the fact that they are there, otherwise they wouldn't have used that particular wordage or verbiage. And he said, well, you'd have to contact a member state to make a proposal, and then we would vote upon it. So I worked down that line for a while, and I was unsuccessful. And then later on, they told me that they've now changed direction. The reveal itself will come from a request from the citizens of Earth. So they're waiting for that request, where I suspect it will come from a collaboration of the different groups, possibly with the Exoconscious community, because we have direct contact with 8 extraterrestrials who wish to meet with our ambassadors here on Earth, our governments. So they are still reaching out, but we, again, the citizens of Earth, have to come together and give that invite. One individual cannot do it. I don't think one group can do it. I think we need to come together as a larger community group with exoconsciousness leading the way in relation to making that request. And I think that's where we're headed. And now government's already aware that the extraterrestrials are here. They've been here for probably thousands of years. They're part of who we are. It's just really now we are waking up to this greater reality of who we are. So it's I still think it's extremely exciting, but we have to do the work. And there are people been working on this for many years.
So we're in an interesting time together, you and I, because with the WikiLeaks, and I guess it was 2016, and then 2017 was the New York Times article came out, and then subsequent to that, then gradually the hearings, the congressional hearings, and new people coming on the stage, mostly government type people coming on the stage to lead this. I wonder if you ever asked your Council of 8 for guidance as to what our role as an exoconscious community of experiencers is in terms of working in this. It's a new environment for us.
Yeah, well, yes, really, all it is sharing the information that we have. We know the Council of Eight are reaching out to people within our community, independently of me. So they are still assisting. And I know recently I was at Gary Bors, he's one of our community members, and I was at his home. He invited me up to a CE5, and we went up there. I did a channel, and Art came through and spoke, and it wasn't planned or anything, but we just it was the right time to do it. We were given information about the exoconscious community. I was given the information about the Awakening Souls group as well. All these groups have contact with the extraterrestrials, and then we went outside after we had a little nibble of food and things. And Gary has these 4 radios, the walkie-talkies, and he put them out, and we did a meditation. And Gary's contact is absolutely tremendous. And the radio in front of me was chirping away, and I asked Gary why it was chirping, and he said that because they want you to pick it up and speak into the radio. So I picked it up, I spoke into the radio, and because the radios, I've never used them before. What they do, you'll ask a question, and then it'll chirp once for yes, 2 for no, 3 for maybe, and then lots of chirps for excitement and communication. And I think Jimmy Blanchett was the first person to introduce this method. I'd never used it. So I asked the question, is there anybody there? It chirped yes. So I then, because we'd just been speaking with Art, I said, oh, is that Art? And it went, 1 chirp, yes. I said, oh, that's good. And then I asked, I think Melanie. Oh, Dr. Melanie Barton was there again. She's always in there somewhere. She was sat next to me. There was only 7 of us there, and Melanie was there. And Melanie said, ask them, can they give us a voice, a verbal voice? And a female voice was heard by the 2 people sat at the left and the person sat at the right of me. So that made me ask the question, is that D? And it chirped, yes. So we've now got Art and D we're talking to on a radio. And I said to them, is Zach there? Is Zach with you? Beep, beep. No, he wasn't with them. But we're now having conversation with extraterrestrials who we know. And we asked them to, can you show us a craft in the northern sky, and flash 3 times? It didn't happen immediately, but later on that evening, a craft appeared and flashed 3 times directly in the northern sky. So, I mean, that's extensive communication directly. But Gary's a member of the Exoconscious community. And I know Dr. Carrie McLeod, she's now receiving downloads. She gets the same scientific downloads that I've spoken about here today, because the Council of Eight are reaching out to her now. And I believe Aurora and others within the group are getting information. I think Nick's got some fantastic information that I'm sure he'll speak about when he comes on your YouTube. And the whole group is growing, but we have direct contact and help with identified individuals. I don't know any other group that has that. I know there are many other councils, and there may be some groups that have their own direct contact, but we certainly do. And it's expanded our connection, and they're giving us more and more knowledge and information. And we can ask direct questions, and they will give us information.
And we're going to have the Exoconscious community that Gary and Kevin and Karen and Aurora are all part of come and discuss with Kevin what they've picked up. Because do you want to share with the group about your experience in joining this community as a person that's a childhood experiencer and then moving into a mature adult life? And has it changed at all your approach, having a community around you?
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, I've been doing this work on my own. Well, I've only been doing it really for about 5 or 6 years, because one evening I went to bed and I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I came back from the bathroom. There was a bright light outside the bedroom window. The light came in through the window and then lit up the bedroom like a myriad of butterflies. And then Orton D materialize at the bottom of the bed. After pleasantries, I asked what was the reason for their visit. And they said, Kevin, we want you to talk about your lifelong interaction with us. We want you to write about your lifelong interaction. I said, well, I don't mind talking about it, but I'm not a writer. And they said, well, we will continue to guide you. We will continue to teach you. And we will give you information to include in the books. I've written one book so far, which is the Spiritual Consciousness, a Personal Journey, about that contact. But up until then, I was doing that on my own. And I think now that I've joined the Exoconscious community, and that's where my introduction to you came in from Edgar, because these higher conscious beings are guiding us on the right path. But we have to be able to have a level of understanding of consciousness to act upon the information that's being given. And I know when I received the initial information for Stephen Greer, I was very hesitant. When I received the information for you from Edgar, I wasn't hesitant at all. I'd learnt my lesson that, it's part of my abilities. That's why I have them. That's why I have an understanding of consciousness. So we can get together at this moment in time, at this timeline, which we are creating now, and creating a future timeline with our ET star families, with the Council of Eight. We are co-creating that timeline. And we can only understand that if we have an understanding of consciousness itself. And we, as the Exoconscious community, have that understanding. So, yeah, I feel very blessed to be in part of a community where we can discuss things openly. I learn so much from the other people, and it's nice to belong to a community of like-minded people with all these fascinating experiences that they have and they're willing to share. And now we're sharing through your YouTube podcast. So it's really, one can see that we are being guided by not only the extraterrestrials, but I suspect the angelic realm, right up to source energy itself, the divine, as it were. So, but yeah, it's fascinating, and it's made me. I've always been a happy person anyway, but it's nice to know that you have a family, and we all talk to one another now. We send one another's messages. Have you seen this? Have you seen that? And we share stuff. And what I'm finding is we each get a little piece of a jigsaw now, and then it builds bigger. Then some people get the same downloads, like with Karen, her story is fascinating. I watched it on the YouTube last week, and again, I watched it twice. And it's a fascinating story. But when you link it in, it's linked with someone else. But now we have that greater community with all these exoconscious human beings who have these developed human abilities that's been hidden from us because I suspect the people in power don't want us to learn about all this because it makes us very powerful beings.
So one of the directions ufology seems to be going into is a higher form of materialism, technology, cybernetics, that sort of thing. And I wonder, we've been talking a lot about how you use your critical thinking and discernment. Even as a child, you were discerning, and you would say, show me a craft or show me evidence of that. You're a very integrated individual, emotionally integrated, spiritually integrated. Certainly those experiences of going and meeting with your father and your family were spiritually integrating for you. And I wonder how you now perceive the movement towards transhumanism.
That's a very good question. I think we are at a fork in the evolution of humanity. And one fork we could go down will be that one of the materialism with the implants and things, with the technologies that we have, becoming more cyborg-like, being dependent on the technologies. and that is one certain route that we could go down. And I think we are being led and pushed down that route because a lot of people would like the technology to help to enhance themselves. But if we go down the other fork and we become exoconscious humans, I'm you, Rebecca, and the people within your group are prime examples. We don't need the augmentation of technology. We can do that with our own abilities by learning them. And I think that's the better way. But then we may well divide and go into two timelines, one with the augmented technology, the implants, the control, or the where we are within the exoconscious community. Can you imagine a whole globe with people that have direct contact, the higher conscious beings, and it will raise our whole level of frequency in who we are. It will end the wars, the famine, the poverty. So yes, we have choices to make. We have free will, and we can choose either. I know I choose the latter, and to extend and continuing to be an exoconscious human with all the abilities. I don't need to pick up the phone using technology and speak to the extraterrestrials. I can use consciousness itself as the conduit, but I can also use the radios, as I demonstrated with Gary. It's just as easy to communicate telepathically once you understand the principles and process behind it.
So are you seeing, and we in our group talk a lot about, recently we've been talking quite a bit about timelines and creating an exoconscious timeline. Do you see humans in this timeline becoming more like Ort and Dee and Ra and Shiva, Orla, Arna, Chica, Tark? I mean, do you see humans becoming these type of beings on this timeline that we're talking about as exoconscious?
Yes, without a doubt. And I'm a prime example of that in relation to, they've educated me into all the modalities of communication that they use, and they're all linked to consciousness itself. So I can speak to them, I can have a conversation with them telepathically. And I've learned to do that over the years, because every time I'm given a telepathic communication, I ask for a confirmation of a signal of, say, can you turn that street light on, as confirmation the information I've been given is correct, and the street light will go on or off, whichever request. And when you do that throughout your life with different requests at each time for confirmation, then you become very confident within that telepathic communication. So I think it's very important. And I still am assisted today with that education, with that confirmation. Only recently, I reached out to the Council of Eight. It was early one morning. I'd just woken up and I thought, I'll reach out and have a chat with them, as it were. And as you would contact your own extended family by phone or whatever. And anyway, I was unable to contact them. But I contacted a small craft that was flying past. And I mentioned earlier the grey, when I was 14, his name is Tia, he was flying this craft. And I said to him, and when I get telepathic communication, I also get visual and emotional information coming through within the telepathic information. And I said, what are you doing here? He said, oh, we were in the neighborhood. We deviated from our flight path to come and see where you lived. We have some other conversation. Then he said, we'll have to leave now because, as I said, we were deviated from our flight path. Nothing unusual for me. I could see him in the cockpit. He was the pilot at the front and 2 rows of greys sat behind him. And anyway, he left. I got up, I made my coffee. My wife was sat outside by the pool having a cup of tea. And she said to me, Kevin, we had a most beautiful rainbow. And rainbows are always there with the communication. And it appeared 180 degrees on the back fence of my 5 acres. And I said, oh, did you get a photograph? She said, yes, but you'll never guess what happened next. I said, no, what happened next? She said, a craft appeared under the rainbow. As she lifted up the iPad to take the photograph, a craft appeared and she snapped it. It's a little blurred, as they always are.
Yeah.
But what was interesting on it, when we looked at the time on the photograph, it was the exact same time on the clock at the side of the bed when I was talking to Tia. So that was more confirmation in relation to the telepathic communication. And now that they bring my wife into it anyway, I had some filters and we put the filters, a friend of mine put the filters on there, and you can see within the blurred photograph that there's something in there, a craft in there. But that's the level of contact that I have, and many have, I believe. We just don't talk about it in relation for being ridiculed or something like that.
Could you explain? So you mentioned that you use a telepathy and you get visuals from the telepathy, but you get emotional information. Can you give us some examples of emotional information that you would get?
Yeah, I can give you the very first one I had about with the Zark himself, the council member, the mathematician engineer. He has a sense of humor. And I was speaking to him, and when I speak to him, I could see him. On that occasion, I couldn't see his location. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. And then we were having a conversation. I cracked a joke, and as he smiled, and I felt the emotion of laughter come over the telepathic communication. So that's the first example of it. But very often, when I get the visual with the telepathic communication, it's just like watching a TV screen. It's as clear as that. So that, again, we don't need technology to do that. We need to develop our own abilities to be able to communicate at that level of consciousness itself.
So one of the things we talk about in our exoconscious community is using critical thinking and discernment and developing co-creation, which we define as a peer-to-peer relationship with the beings with whom we're communicating. So, Kevin, do you feel like your development through your messages and conversations and experiences that you've had with the Council of Eight make a difference to them as much as it makes to you? So there's a more of a peer-to-peer where the fact that you are raising your awareness and your exoconsciousness is also raising theirs.
Yes, I would say so, because they are trying to reach out independently, or they have been trying to reach out independently to our different governments, and they're not getting any success in relation to that. And so they've educated, and I am not, there are many that have been educated to my level of contact, I'm sure, many in the exoconscious community itself, for this specific time. And yes, I think they've grown frustrated in relation to the negativity that they've received from our governments. So now they are using the people that they've educated to get the message out there, and then we, the citizens of Earth, can make that request. Well, you know, with the consent of our government, I'm sure that they are aware of the extraterrestrials, and I'm sure that they are now speaking more openly about it. You mentioned earlier the congressional hearing, and they've mentioned non-human intelligence. I mean, that's a huge leap forward for our governments to do that. So they are working towards it. I'm sure they've got their confined restraints within their governments, but I suspect there will be experiences like myself within the governments, and they will step forward, I suspect, to assist with creating this timeline. And that's the key now. There's always been two timelines within Earth's reality, I understand. And these timelines are coming very close together, and we can create the timeline that we desire now for our children, for our future generations, because we have an understanding of how to do it. And our ETs are here to help and assist with that. And that helps them, because they now realize they've got some good students who have learnt the understanding of consciousness, and they're using that to help with that communication. And that's the key, I think. So yes, they are happy with the different groups, specifically with the exoconscious community, And I know Ort has mentioned it a few times. And if we go back to some of the channels I did in 2016, 2017, 2018 with Kathleen Marden and the earthly group of four, the council of four that we nicknamed ourselves, Kathy, Denise, Melanie, and myself, then the information has been given to us years in advance for this moment in time. And I know that Karine has been reading through some of the transcripts of the channels, and there are messages in there that we've missed. So it's fascinating that they are assisting. There's clearly a plan that they have, and we're all part of it, and many others. It's not just me or the Exoconscious community, but I think we will lead the way within the creation side of the timeline, because we have an understanding of it and how it can be achieved.
It's very powerful, that human awareness of the Edgar always called it the extraterrestrial presence. That's how he always termed it. Consciousness, the extraterrestrial presence. It's so powerful when you think about how important humans are. And that's one of the reasons why we call ourselves Exoconscious Humans, because we're humans in this endeavor. And this is a species endeavor that people can choose to be a part of or not be a part of. They have freedom of choice to do that. But it's very enlightening to hear you talk about why it matters to these beings from other races.
Yeah, because we are a unique species. We are humanity. We have been created by whoever created us. And we've evolved to this level of not only technology, but these the spiritual level, the psychic level, the psychic abilities, to where we are now at a point where we can join a galactic community because we can communicate at their level of consciousness. So that's bridging the gap in relation to the invite for them to reveal themselves globally. And I think we are, as a species, are ready for that.
Oh, Kevin, thank you so much. This has been just an inspirational, enlightening, educational interview. I mean, so you've brought so much forward, and we're going to have a next meeting with Kevin and bring forth some people within the Exoconscious community that have been meeting with Kevin. We meet weekly with this group, meeting with Kevin, and we're all going to talk about how the Council of Eight has influenced us, as has it influenced us as Exoconscious Humans, and how we are bringing forth the messages, and also working with healing as well as telepathy, and having a kind of a prophetic clairvoyance about the times that we're in, as well as building an exoconscious timeline together as a community. So I look forward to that also, because it's been so much fun in the group to see Karen step forward and read Kevin's transcripts and help Kevin recall the important things that he brought forward.
And if anybody's interested in those transcripts, they're in a book by Kathleen Marden, The Forbidden Knowledge, which is an excellent read. And over a 2-year period, I channeled the information and Kathleen published it. So if anybody's interested, it's all out there but that's the idea, get the information out to the general public, and we can all learn together.
Well, there's so many more things we could talk about, the void of consciousness, and so many great telepathic messages that you've brought forward that have such just very deep influences on our community. And so once again, for those who are watching, subscribe to our channel, join our newsletter, because as I said, this Exoconscious community is going to be revealing itself more along with the reveal. And we hope that you can be a part of it. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Well, Thank you, Rebecca. We're all on the same journey together, and it's so nice to be part of the Exoconscious community. So it's uplifted my spirit, and I've always been happy. But to now to have great friends within that
Yes,
community, it's
great
just
friends.
amazing. Yeah.